Sonic Colors is an entry in the Sonic franchise I have a complicated relationship with. It's not an all-around terrible game, but the writing and the story can definitely leave something to be desired. It's very much the beginning of an era that leaves vulnerability and earnestness at the door and replaces it with self-referential irony, which has had negative consequences for the series over the past 10 years. I mean, Sonic Lost World and Sonic Forces are pretty strong examples of this focus on comedic writing being to their detriment with paper-thin flanderizations of the characters, and the Sonic brand overall on Twitter seems to have given up on the idea that a Sonic story can be quality. But that's a story for another time. It's a game that I felt pretty lukewarm about. I'm not a fan of the large amount of 2D sections, especially the ones that reuse vast portions of each other. I'm especially not a fan of, again, the writing, or the fact that the Wisp power-ups have permeated the series afterward and been shoehorned in several games like Sonic Generations or Sonic Lost World, where they didn't really have any business being in the first place. There's nothing terrible about Sonic Colors or anything. Probably the most mid-tier Sonic game I've ever seen. So when it was announced it would be getting a remake this year, I wasn't really interested. Like, sure, I like Metal Sonic and all. I think he has a lot of potential to be an interesting character with an intense examination of the fact that he was solely created to be a carbon copy of Sonic, which could lead to some interesting existential dread. But judging on how the characters are written in Sonic Colors, I knew he wouldn't be anything more than a gimmick added to increase sales, like most of his recent appearances. Anyway, the point is, I had no interest in playing the game. But then the early access releases came out. Holy shit. This looks so bad that I had to play it. Sonic turns into a fucking fish, for God's sake. But first, let's try to piece together how it was possible for Fish Sonic to exist. Well, let's look at the studio who made the game, Blind Squirrel Games. They don't seem to have a great track record, apparently doing lots of bad ports, including a Mass Effect collection that's rather glitchy, and a version of a WWE game that was nearly unplayable without patching. That's what I assume is going to happen to this game too. But here's the thing. Neither of them are this bad. Nothing like this happened to those games. So, even though they have a history of fairly bad ports, I have to ask again, how did this happen? Did Sega rush the studio so it could be an anniversary game? I'm terribly confused. Let's actually play Sonic Colors Ultimate, because maybe there's something I'm missing here. Maybe it's great. After all, a lot of people on Twitter have admitted they were emulating the game when some of these glitches occurred, so it could have been totally fabricated. Regardless, I want to see it for myself. Surely it's not that bad, right? Right. As soon as we start the game, I'm already having some problems with the presentation. It's incredibly lackluster. They didn't bother redoing the cutscenes at all, so they look really fuzzy because they're originally supposed to run on the Wii hardware. They're quote-unquote AI upscaled, but guys, you literally had the assets to remake the cutscenes. You could have just done that, but whatever, that's not a huge issue. Apparently the entire soundtrack was redone, but during my playthrough I didn't really notice anything that different. It seems like the same, admittedly great songs that were already in the base game. Granted, I haven't played the base game in a long time, so I wouldn't really know. Something funny to note is that the extended credit sequence doesn't have the full song play. It just stops and you walk in silence for the last minute or so. Anyway, what about those goofy graphical errors? Well, they happened to me a few times, though nothing as seizure-inducing as what can be seen in some of the videos on the internet. I'm sure that part of the reason for that was due to some people using emulators to paint a very disingenuous view of the game. That's not to say there weren't issues though, because there are a lot of issues. Just not the seizure-inducing light shows that I anticipated. There's some really ugly lighting choices, and there's also, of course, a lot of frame rate drops. I don't know if that's intended, and it's not something that bothers me a whole lot, but frame rate drops happen a lot in this game. And, oh my god, there's so much poppin' with the models. Colored rings only a few feet away and levels will just phase into existence. And some new camera angles reveal even more poppin' on enemies that are on the other side of the stage. I'm honestly just confused as to why they would change the camera angles at all if they would end up revealing graphical errors. What's the point in that? Also, sometimes the background geometry just disappears. It just goes away. And the glitches aren't just graphical. As a consequence of the game running at a higher frame rate, I assume, a lot of things happen way too fast. Some ring trails that appear for a limited time you literally can't collect, even if you enter them the second it's possible. Half pipes just simply don't work anymore, and clipping through the geometry is a regular occurrence. Not unlike a certain other Sonic remaster that featured Metal Sonic as a major selling point. Oh right, I guess I should talk about the Metal Sonic Racing mode, the new thing to come out of this. Well, the mode itself is fine. It adds a new way to play through the levels as opposed to the more exploration-based red ring finding that one typically does in Sonic Colors, and I can appreciate it for that. I don't really see a point in digging up Metal Sonic's grave for it, but it's nice to see his face again. However, the UI for entering the mode looks ridiculous. It looks like some kind of virus window popping up on your PC. And then the versus screen just looks super ugly with two renders of the characters arbitrarily placed together against no music. It feels like a mobile game to me. I really don't like it. There is one addition that I think adds a bit to this game, the Jade Ghost Wisp. It's another Wisp power-up, and I'm already not super crazy about those, but I think it adds a lot of interesting exploration opportunities to levels. You get to phase through objects, and that's just really cool, you know? I like being a ghost. Boo Mario is the best Mario, don't at me. However, even this couldn't avoid having something silly about it. A lot of the Jade Ghost exclusive areas are pretty obviously signposted by the fact there's invisible walls near it that awkwardly take you out of the experience. Like, come on guys, seriously? Why even bother adding this Wisp if you're not going to bother fully implementing it into the game? And sometimes while phasing through things, if you transform back into Sonic, you will fall through the floor and die. Which, again, really takes me out of the experience. Sonic Colors represents a lot of things I don't like about the Sonic series in its present day. The obsession with its two-dimensional entries that bleeds deeply into its 3D ones, the writing being full of attempts at humor that fail, and a refusal to take itself seriously, in addition to the introduction of the recurring Wisp abilities that really should have just stayed in this game and not gotten into the other ones. Overall, I think Sonic Colors itself is fine in a vacuum. However, Sonic Colors Ultimate represents the rest of the issues I have with Sonic, but this time on the whole. There are a lot of glaring technical issues with this game, not unlike some of Sonic's other outings. But at least with some of those outings, there was an earnest attempt to make an artistic product that was exceptional. Sonic 2006, a game that barely functions at times, at least has a heart. Sonic Colors has always felt soulless to me, but at least was mechanically solid. This time, however, it has neither of those things, so it is nothing for me. Basically, my biggest question is, how did this happen? The game itself is a failure and one of the most unfinished games that I've ever played. I'm just genuinely confused that this was even released in the state that it was. So how did it happen? Why did it happen? Normally, in a video like this, I'd attempt to answer that question. But frankly, I don't have the answers. I have no idea how something this broken was allowed to be released. So all I have to say to close out this video is, what the fuck is going on? This has been Arcadian Everlasting, Sonic Colors Disliker, signing off. Thank you for watching.